Sidebar: Can sane eating and smarter exercise save your life? Jim's story. The story of 70-year-old Jim is nothing short of remarkable. In Jim's words, it started in 1959. I stood at my father's hospital bedside and watched while he suffered a fatal heart attack. It was also my sister's birthday. She was only 11 and my twin brother and I were 16. Dad was only 39 and I feared I would have the same fate. That memory still haunts me today. Don't worry, this story does have a happy ending. Fast forward a few decades, and I followed in my father's footsteps, suffering from a major heart attack at age 40. Then at age 63, my heart did its best to throw in the towel. However, my surgeon performed a quadruple bypass, and my electrophysiologist installed an internal cardio defibrillator, or ICD. The unit records all abnormal cardiac events and works to keep me alive if and when I go into fibrillation. That has happened 2 times since the device was installed. A year later, at age 64, I went into heart failure and started having daily events of tachycardia. I had low energy, sleep apnea, and chronic events of premature ventricular contractions, or PVCs, that could not be controlled. Drugs helped somewhat, but also caused hypotension, and my energy was nil. My heart wanted to stop. I felt it, but I wasn't ready to stop. Knowing something had to change and figuring I had little to lose, I discontinued all medications except baby aspirin, prayed my dad was watching over me, and looked for answers elsewhere, then discovered sane eating and smarter exercise. Within 2 days, I was eating 10 servings of green leafy vegetables and so many healthy proteins and fats that I was too full for grains, starches, and sugars. I also started eccentric resistance training and smarter interval training. What happened next was nothing short of a miracle. I got stronger than I've been in decades while shedding 6 inches from my waist. My LDL cholesterol dropped from 220 to 165, and my blood pressure dropped from 150/90 to 110/70. The greatest improvement was a 90% reduction in PVCs and a 100% cure for sleep apnea. My energy is the highest it's been in 30 years. I feel fully alive for the first time in decades. Now for the happy ending I promised. During a recent visit, my cardiologist checked out my data and happily reported that my events of ventricular tachycardia were 0. I happily suggested she start sane eating and smarter exercise as a cure for heart disease, as it certainly cured mine. She responded with a resounding "will do." Chapter 15: How Humanity Can Achieve Sanity. How do we avoid all this insanity? We need to be pragmatic and ask, is there a way of eating that is proven to keep people free from obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and cardiovascular disease, or the diseases of civilization? Yes, we can simply eat the way we did before civilization. We can eat things we find directly in nature: vegetables, seafood, meat, eggs, fruit, nuts, and seeds. We can eat whole foods rich in water, fiber, and protein. It just makes sense. Why would anything or anyone design us to run on a low fat, low protein, high starch diet that was not possible for 99.8% of our history. The closer a food is to a plant we could gather or an animal we could hunt, the more sane it is. And if anything other than cooking or cutting is required between the plant or animal and our stomach, then it probably does not belong in our stomach to begin with. This isn't about primal eating or paleo dieting. It's about eating the whole natural foods that kept us slim and healthy for the entirety of human history up until the current 3 generations. We're not talking about cavemen. We're talking about grandma. And this point has nothing to do with eating organic versus conventional food. Until someone discovers a Cheerios tree, a pasta plant, or a bread bush, conventional blueberries are more sane than organic Cheerios, pasta, or bread. And please be on the lookout for false natural claims. Natural in a sane lifestyle means found directly in nature. Bread is not found directly in nature. Pasta is not found directly in nature. Whole grains, as found directly in nature, cannot be eaten by humans. Cereal is not found directly in nature. Eggs, seeds, nuts, meat, seafood, vegetables, and fruit are found directly in nature and are what we should be putting directly into our mouths. Keep in mind that this is a general rule. There are exceptions. Some include low sugar protein powders and bars, low sugar jerkies, cottage cheese, plain Greek yogurt, and a few other examples. These foods are healthy sources of protein, so you can enjoy them even though they're not found directly in nature. This audiobook isn't found directly in nature either, but that in and of itself doesn't mean it's bad for you. The key about the directly found in nature principle is that by default, if it's not found directly in nature, we need to look carefully at its sanity. But if it is found directly in nature, in general, we can be pretty certain it's sane. But of course, there are exceptions to every rule. For instance, even though starches such as potatoes, rice, and corn are found directly in nature, these foods are best avoided due to their relatively low water, fiber, and protein content, and given how genetically manipulated they've been by the modern food industry. It's also important to keep in mind that the way we need to eat while we're healing our metabolism is different from the way we can eat once we have a healed metabolism. Can an individual who is fully metabolically healed enjoy pure, clean, natural rice? Absolutely. Should an individual who is struggling with diabetes and overweight eat insulin exploding rice? Absolutely not. We've got to look at our unique situations and custom tailor sanity for us. The bottom line is that unless our metabolic system completely transformed itself in the last 0.2% of our history, the 12,000 years since we first started farming, filling our system with substances it was not designed to digest will cause clogs. Dr. John Yudkin of the University of London notes that significant adaptations of the human genome require between 1,000 and 10,000 generations. He goes on, if there have been great changes in people's environment that occurred in a much shorter time, there are likely to be signs that people have not fully adapted, and this will probably show itself as the presence of disease. More simply, we did not change, but the quality of our diet did, and this has left us heavy, diabetic, and sick. A study from the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center at Dallas showed that our modern diet increases nearly all risk factors for the diseases of civilization when compared with a pre-starch and sweetener diet. Similar work at the Hamoto Clinic, Lund University, and Duke University Medical Center have shown a more natural and sane diet to be the best diet available for clog clearing. In a University of Melbourne study, middle-aged Australian hunter-gatherers started out lean and free from type 2 diabetes. They then switched to an insane diet inspired by the government's high-starch, low-fat guidelines and became overweight and type 2 diabetic. Then they reverted back to their saner, natural diet. In only 7 weeks, the tribespeople lost an average of 16.5 pounds. No dieting needed, just sane food. The list of studies proving the same results goes on and on, but Emory University researchers give us the bottom line. Following a diet comparable to the one that humans are genetically adapted to should postpone, mitigate, and in many cases prevent altogether a host of diseases that debilitate us. Let's turn next to specifically how we do that. How we easily, enjoyably, and permanently go sane.